The Golden Age of Steam. A journey from the A to Z of steam. A is for the A3 Pacific number 4472 Flying Scotsman, probably the most famous steam locomotive in the world. Seen here, first of all, at Marylebone Station in 1987, being prepared to work a steam special out of that station.
All clear my side.
Yeah, take her right the way down the end, Jim.
Doing the top open, she's slimy. No, she's not, she's alright.
Famous last night.
It is, isn't it?
Moving back to 1968, Flying Scotsman is seen at the head of a steam special leaving King's Cross Station en route to Edinburgh. Note the two tenders which the engine used at that period in order to have adequate water supplies. In 1969, Flying Scotsman, complete with coaching stock, visited the USA after being shipped from Southampton docks. It made an extensive tour of major cities in that country and generated much interest. B is for the B4 class of four coupled locomotives which were built for the London and South Western Railway at the turn of the century and were used mainly for dock shunting. Seen here in a different role is Normandy working a steam special on the Swanage branch line in Dorset. Note the rather exposed cab required for good visibility in its original role as a shunting locomotive. Built by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, the Stanier Black Fives were arguably the most successful general-purpose steam locomotives ever built in this country. A total of 842 were built and several are preserved. Filmed in 1988, number 5305 Alderman Draper is being prepared to work a special to Nottingham from Marylebone Station. This station is one of the very few on British Rail that have retained a turntable. Conceived mainly as a freight locomotive on the South Eastern and Chatham Railway, the C-Class were often used on passenger trains. The C-Class is featured here at the closure of a branch line in Kent. Amidst the rather festive crowd, an undertaker appropriately makes an appearance. He was soon to make many more during the period of the beaching cuts. D. Duchess of Hamilton, a member of the coronation class of locomotives built for the London, Midland and Scottish Railway for service on the West Coast Main Line expresses. A powerful locomotive regarded by many as the premier express passenger engine in Britain. During a mini gale in 1986, number 6229 leaves Marylebone en route to Stratford-upon-Avon and was also filmed speeding through Wembley Complex Station. E is for electric locomotives. Shown here is a Class 73 locomotive built for the southern region leaving Waterloo Station. Although primarily operated as an electric unit, these locomotives were unusual in that they could also be powered by a diesel-electric generator. Watercress Line made a special trip to the Mid-Hants Railway in 1988 and is seen here at Alton British Rail Station. Fireless locomotives were employed in industrial locations where spark emissions might have provided a fire hazard. The boiler was provided with steam from a stationary boiler and could operate for about 45 minutes. Filmed at a paper mill in Kent is a typical member of the class, built by Andrew Barclay of Kilmarnock. Unusually, the cylinders were situated under the cab. Green Arrow is a member of the V2 class of mixed traffic locomotive built by the London and North Eastern Railway. A powerful and versatile locomotive, this is the only one of its class preserved. Number 4771 leaves Marylebone at the head of the Shakespeare Express and gets involved in the almost obligatory V2 wheel spin. H. Designed for light suburban and branch line work, the H-class tank locomotives were once a familiar sight on the railways of Kent and Sussex. Seen in a rare film clip is one of this class leaving Hawkhurst station with apparently one solitary passenger. The train wends its way through pleasant Kent countryside over a line that was soon to be closed. I. Industrial steam locomotives were at one time to be found at many locations in Britain, such as coal mines, steelworks and factories. One of the most common types was the J94 class designed during World War II. Many hundreds of them were built. Typical of the class is this one filmed at the now closed Betshanger Colliery in Kent. With a somewhat overcrowded cab, the engine moves up the track and eventually proceeds to bank a coal train up a steep gradient. J. LMS 5XP class of locomotives were known as Jubilees and were once a familiar sight on Anglo-Scottish expresses. Several have been preserved, including the one shown here, number 5593 Kolhapur, leaving Garsdale station on the Settle and Carlisle line. It's also seen just north of Appleby. J also stands for the North British Railway J36 class. Seen here at the 1980 cavalcade of steam is sole survivor Maud. K. The K4, number 3442, the Great Marquis, the only member of its class to be preserved, pounds up the gradient past Malastang, heading towards Aysgill on the Settle and Carlisle line. After stopping at Garsdale station to pick up water, number 3442 leaves with its distinctive three-cylindered beat, much in evidence. L. Loose-coupled freight trains were once used extensively on Britain's railways, but with the advent of modernisation and bulk haulage, they're now virtually extinct. The shunting operations shown here are typical of a loose-coupled pickup train on a branch line. M. The Merchant Navy class of locomotives were built by the Southern Railway for express passenger workings, and they could be said to represent the state of the art in advanced steam locomotive design. A member of this class to be preserved is number 35027 Port Line, seen here in operation on the Bluebell Railway at Sheffield Park and Horsted Keynes stations. N. Introduced in 1918, the N15 class became known as the King Arthurs, being named after characters in English history and mythology. Number 777, Sir Lamiel, has been preserved and is shown here at Marylebone and on a Christmas special at Wembley Complex and Sear Green on its way to High Wycombe. O. Built at the turn of the century for the South Eastern and Chatham Railway, the O-Class were a somewhat dated-looking animal. Seen here in a rare clip from the early 1950s is number 31065 in operation at Rolvenden on the former Kent and East Sussex Railway with a mixed train. P. One of the smallest engines on the Southern Railway were the P class of 6 coupled tank engines. They were used mainly on branch line work. Several have been preserved, as is number 323 on the Bluebell Railway. Of note is the pagoda-styled cab. Q. Only 20 of the Q class of locomotives were built by the Southern Railway, but nevertheless they turned out to be a useful and versatile unit in service. Number 541 is the only one preserved and was originally stationed at Guildford, BR Loco Shed. Note the steam-operated reverser gear situated over the middle driving wheels. The scenes here are at Sheffield Park and en route up the gradient to Horsted Canes. R is for the rocket. R is also for replica. The original rocket was built by George Stephenson in 1827, and this replica was built in the 1970s. Early rail travellers must have been a hardy breed indeed, travelling in carriages such as this, with little protection from the weather. Conditions for the crew were even worse, as no pretence was made at providing a cab for their comfort. S. The S15 series was designed as a general purpose unit by the Southern Railway. The locos were equally at home on freight or passenger workings. Seen in 1988 on the Mid-Hants Railway as it leaves Alton Station is number 506, working up the considerable gradient out of the station. Also filmed on the return trip. T. Known as greyhounds because of their fast speed capabilities, the T9s achieved some fame in the early days of working the Waterloo to South Western expresses. One of them, number 120, has been preserved and is filmed here on the Mid-Hants Railway. By kind permission of the management, our video crew were offered the facility of operating from the footplate. Assistance is given by the S15 number 506, as the steep gradients on this line, known locally as the Alps because of its severe inclines, would have been beyond the capabilities of the T9. Turntables were required to turn locomotives to face in the opposite direction. They were either mechanically operated, as in this scene, or pushed round by hand. Filmed in 1966 is Jubilee class number 5562 Alberta being turned at Kingmore Loco Shed, Carlisle. It's later seen leaving Citadel Station on a steam special returning to Leeds over the Settle and Carlisle route. U. Nicknamed U-boats by railwaymen, but officially known as the U-Mogul class by the Southern Railway, this preserved example is much used on the Bluebell. When first preserved, this locomotive went to the Kent and East Sussex Railway at Tenterden, but weight problems prevented it from running on that railway. It was later transferred to the Bluebell.
Yes, yes. What the sound? I learned the driver's peeing.
V. The Southern Railway V class of locomotives were always known as the schools, being named after famous English public schools. They were noteworthy as being the most powerful four-coupled engines built in Britain and were well liked by railwaymen. This one is seen at Horsted Keynes Station in 1987. W. Designed by Bulleid for the Southern Railway, the West Country Pacifics were of an unusual and distinctive design and were originally built in a streamlined form. Some members of the class were later defrocked, but the original series were always referred to as spam cans. A preserved member of the class is number 21C123 Blackmore Vale, seen here being prepared for a busy day of operation. Of interest are the solid driving wheels being based on the American box-pock design. Also, amongst other innovations, were the steam-driven electric generator and steam-operated fire-hole doors. Filmed in 1977, Blackmore Vale has now been out of service for several years, awaiting overhaul. X. Known as Terriers, the A1X tank locomotives were much used by the Southern Railway for shunting and branch line work. Several have been preserved, and most of them are over 100 years old. This one, Stepney, dressed up like Thomas the Tank Engine, is a great attraction for young people. The white circular discs on the buffer beam represented a system of train code identification which was unique to the Southern Railway. Y is for young people who are keeping interest in steam alive, since regular steam operation on British Rail ceased on the 4th of August 1968. The preservation of steam in this country depends on the continuing enthusiasm of these young volunteers. Z is for Zimbabwe, where these British-built Bayer Garretts with 2 articulated power units enable a massive boiler to be used, completely filling the loading gauge, providing plenty of power for the many gradients and tight curves that abound in this country. The railways in Zimbabwe were originally known as the Rhodesian Railways. They have a track width of 3 feet 6 inches as opposed to the British gauge of 4 feet 8.5 inches. In spite of this reduction in track width, these Manchester-built locomotives are considerably larger and more powerful than almost any steam locomotives that ever ran on Britain's railways.